Ready to go live. If our panelists could put their cameras on, that would be great. And OG, take it over.
All right. Welcome to the AMA session titled How Developing and Ascending Professionals Have Improved ASCLS and the Profession. My name is Ogechi Oheto, commonly known as OG, and tonight I'll be asking our panelists questions alongside with Katie Geis, who is the Developing Professional Director. This AMA will highlight how grassroots advocacy from these early career professionals and students foster leadership, promote advocacy, and help shape professional standards. Today we have with us Jessie Day, which is the ASCLS Ascending Professional Director, Joshua Pulido, who is an ASCLS Director, Kyle Riding, ASCLS President-elect, and Rebecca Rogers, ASCLS Sustaining Member. Thank you all for being here. So let's start this off by, I'm going to start this off by asking the first question, which is, how have developing and ascending professionals moved the profession forward?
So if it's okay, I'll dive in and tackle this to start, and then I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone else has to say. So as OG said, my name is Kyle Riding. I'm really excited to be here this evening and chat about the important role developing and ascending professionals have played in our organization and our profession as a whole. And when I think about the impact that I'm saying we, like I'm still one of those groups, I'm not anymore. But when I look back to the time when I was a developing and then ascending professional, we didn't call it that at the time, but it's the same thing essentially. We were in a really unique space as a profession. We were seeing two accreditation agencies, NCA and ASCP's Board of Registry, merge into one. And it was the ASCP Board of Certification. And I think one of the more exciting parts of that journey was I was on the ASCLS board as what we then called the Student Forum Chair. Now it's the Developing Professionals Forum Chair. And getting called, literally I was in the middle of JCPenney with my sister, getting a call from past President Marianne McLean asking about this merger and the naming conventions and what were we going to name these certified professionals. And it was important through the processes of this merger that students and ascending professionals were represented in that process and voices were heard. And I knew from talking to my colleagues in both forums at the time that folks really felt passionate about medical lab scientists. And here we are so many years later now, and we have the moniker I am MLS for our 4-year credentialed candidates. And of course, we have our amazing med lab technicians as well. There's no shade being thrown to them, but it really was a moment where the power of ASCLS and its forums allowed developing and ascending professionals to have a bigger voice in the professional landscape as a whole. Now, did our opinion drive the ship? No, but it certainly made an important point for ASCLS leaders to drill that home as part of those negotiations. So that was cool. That was a great moment.
So I would just say the forum today is just a really eager group, like wanting to push the society forward and really push the boundaries of what we're doing. So I would say that's what we're bringing to the table now.
I agree with Kyle and Jesse. One area I'll touch on is advocacy. And I attended Legislative Days, which is now our legislative symposium, back in 2002 for the first time as a student. I was fortunate enough to get an appointment at the time with Utah's Senator Orrin Hatch, with our delegation as well. But being a student at the time, the senator and his health aides were much more interested in my views and what I thought and how legislation would potentially affect the trajectory of the lab profession going forward. So even as a developing professional, your words count, they matter. And sometimes in those advocacy forums, that they want to know, okay, decisions we're making today, how's that going to affect these folks 15, 20, 30 years from now? So everything counts and advocacy is important.
Right. We can go ahead and move on to the next question. I know OG and I have both just in the past couple of years seen our forums change, adding on new events, doing new things. But if you guys could give us a little bit of a history from when you guys were on the student forums and the Ascending Professional Forums, just tell us a little bit about the history, what you guys have seen change.
So I'll dive in first again. So the Developing Professionals Forum, formerly was the Student Forum, has been around much longer than the Ascending Professionals Forum. The Student Forum was actually started, I'm going to screw up dates here, but it was actually started in the late 60s, early 70s, if not earlier than that. And it was one of ASCLS, at the time it was ASMT, was one of the only medical organizations that actually had a student on their board of directors with full voice and vote. There really weren't any other medical associations. And I'm very fortunate that one of my faculty members at UMass Dartmouth, Dr. Jim Griffith, was that first student on the ASCLS board. So very proud of that fact. And through the years, the student forum was very successful, but back in Josh and Rebecca, you were both there alongside of me, so you may remember, but it was in the early aughts, the early 2000s, that we all as a group kind of realized, yeah, they love us when they're students, but then we graduate and it feels like we have no home. And it was really through our own advocacy that we developed it was the New Professionals Committee, well, Young Professionals Committee at first. You all were there when it formed, so I'm going to let you speak to that, but it is a newer group relative to the student forum.
Josh, do you want to go first, or am
Ladies
I
first.
okay?
Go for it.
I want to apologize for I keep getting kicked off. So if I'm talking and I go away again, Josh, just step in and take over. I think that the biggest part for me, I attended my first annual meeting as an alternate to our student delegate and was brought along to the student forum meetings and was so excited to see that at the national level, like Kyle has mentioned, that we had a voice, that we participated, and that we had someone that represented us on the board of directors. The thing that took me by surprise was participating in the elections for the next year's student forum. As an alternate, I didn't have a vote. Only our student delegate from the state had a vote. So at that time, even though the student forum may have been, 50 to 100 students, it was only one vote per state. So that was one of the things that I remember being very impactful as we progressed, because I believe that my first or second annual meeting is when we transitioned and started the Young Professional Committee. It became a year or two down the road a task force, and we were able to actually change the voting structure for both the Student Forum and the Young Professional Committee, New Professional Forum, all the different names, so that everyone who was attending meetings, who was participating actively in the society at the national level, could have their voice heard and their vote counted in their representation for those individuals leading the forums and becoming directors on the board. So that is what I will chime in. And then Josh, if you have anything else to add on.
Yeah, I'll just echo Rebecca there. I mean, my very first year I was a student delegate in the meeting in 2000. I think it was in Orlando. And I ran for student forum chair that year. And it was kind of disheartening because we probably had 60, 70 students in the room, but there were only 18 or 19 who could vote. Not every state there had a delegate. So while there's always been a strong developing professional student congregation, it was disheartening early on. And just seeing the society morph over the last several years, it's really given the students and developing professionals a voice. We had a joke in Region 8 that I was the forever student because I started as an MLT and we're very young, and then I was then my bachelor's, then I went on for a master's in CLS. So I stayed on the state and region board as a student delegate for about 6 or 7 years, and so I got the running joke that I was the permanent student. But through those years, I watched it develop. And as Kyle mentioned, once we graduated, especially when I was between my bachelor's and my master's, you really felt like there wasn't a home at the time before the Ascending Professional got developed. You went from either being a student delegate, and then you had to pick between Professional 1 or Professional 2 at the time. And the difference there was your right to participate as a delegate and the journal, newsletter. So there were some benefits between those categories, but there really wasn't a home until you became a professional. And a lot of us right out of school couldn't afford the Professional 1 category. So there's been a lot of work and transition to keep the passion and the voice carrying and allowing students to go from being a developing professional to an ascending professional and work through their early on career till they're more stable to be a sustaining member.
And this is just one other quick thing, nerdy governance stuff, administrivia. But during that time as well, we recognized that a few of us here and there would be able to get onto committees and have our voices heard, but it wasn't a guarantee. And so that's really where, as a group, we used our voices, and there was just something, and the case is the same now. There's the similar mentality amongst the two forums now as there was back then. But we realized our voices mattered, and we didn't play any games with that, and we stood up for ourselves, and we actually fought to assure that there was a chance to have developing and ascending professional voices on every committee. And so that's something I think all of us were very proud of getting at that point in time.
It sounds like I'm here with the godfathers of the committees, but I do want to thank you guys for being an advocate for the profession.
I'm not wearing a ring for you to kiss, OG. That's the problem right now.
Thank you guys so much for that. So now I want to go on to the next question, which is looking back, what were some of the pivotal moments within the APF and DPF that helped you shape the trajectory of your career and involvement in ASCLS?
So I can start with that one, I guess. For me, I joined the committee 3-4 years ago. I just kind of got pulled in by one of the previous chairs. I didn't really know what I was joining. And since then, everything has been so amazing. I've traveled all over the country. I've attended, numerous conferences. I actually was a recipient of so many of the travel scholarships from the forum that we fund. So for me, it literally transformed my career and gave me a lot more passion for the career. It encouraged me to be more of an advocate. Because when you're with like-minded people, you feel that much more empowered to be able to do something. So some of my best friends are at ASCLS, and I've met them through the APF. And so I just really love that.
I'll go next. I agree and echo with Jesse. I mean, the level of involvement is how much you want to be involved. And I was pulled in as well and didn't know what I was getting into at first. But the more I got involved, the more I got to know people. The power of networking and what comes with that is immense. And most of us lab folks initially are introverted. My professionally, my career just flourished after I got very involved with ASCLS. I got to know, at the time, I sat on the hematology scientific assembly as the student rep on there, and got to know the late Bunny Rodak. And then when she was writing her next edition of her hematology book, asked if I would review a few chapters to see if it made sense. as I was working in a cancer center at the time as an MLT. So just that power there, I then got to know other folks. And when I got topped out as a supervisor and had no career trajectory in a laboratory, some of the folks I had met at ASCLS who were the state president of California, such were reps at BioRad. And they're like, well, we have opportunities. And so then they brought me over to the industry side and helped me to grow outside of my bubble and mentored me in sales and such. So really, to me, getting involved as a student and just getting to know folks and networking and the power of wanting to be involved helps with your career, both personally and professionally. And anytime there's something rough, you have an entire network to fall back on. It's been interesting seeing social media evolve during this time. When I first joined in 2000, nothing, Facebook didn't exist, Instagram, Twitter. We had MySpace maybe by 2005 or 2006. But now I'm connected to so many lab professionals online. Anytime there's even something personally that happens, the lab community is there. And it's just such a powerful network of friends and family to fall back on.
Is that okay, Kyle? Thanks. I had tried to think of a couple of answers for this question, and honestly, several of the things that we've touched on already, I feel like were pivotal for the society, and then that just flows over into my career. But specifically, raising our voice and feeling that we were empowered enough to bring up how important it was for us to have a vote, for every student and every young professional on those forums to have a vote. Being able to join national committees, like Kyle mentioned, it was purposeful after those new and what Josh stated, the new membership categories as well, that allowed us to be able to transition from sometimes, a student membership that the university has covered for you or is free, but then moving over into even now the ascending professionals. Sometimes that can be hard if you are not fully solidified in a role, in a position. So being able to have that stair step is a huge pivot for the society. And then those positions on the committees that were solidified because we then had those multiple membership categories. We could have multiple roles for students and young professionals to serve. All of those things gave experience that a new professional would not gain in their employer most of the time in those first 2 or 3 years of employment. And that sort of trickled over into down the road once I became a supervisor and was, instantly supervising peers. That gave me the ability to pass on that empowerment to use your voice in the workplace as well, and not to be afraid to voice a concern or to mention something that you think isn't right. All of that, I think when I joined as a student, it was ASCLS.
Oh no. I think she got cut. All right. Rebecca, if you come back, I'm gonna let you finish. At least she was in her freeze frame. She looks good. Like, she doesn't look horrible. So we'll give the internet deities that. But I just want to say it's funny that, or it's interesting, Josh mentioned Bunny Rodak of textbook authorship fame. That was one of the pivotal moments for me. It was the 2006 meeting in Chicago was my first annual meeting. And I remember walking outside the hotel, and there, my hematology instructor pointed out, she goes, "Oh, that's Bunny Rodak." And I said, "You mean like the book author?" Thinking like, there's no way I would ever be able to meet someone that wrote a whole textbook. And I did, and she was the sweetest thing you could have ever imagined. To this day, she's someone that I value in my heart. And the fact ASCLS allowed me to see such an inspirational professional. But it was really the fact that Bunny reached out to me after that meeting and asked me to write a letter to her students because she said she saw something in me. And I was a lot of people don't like to believe this about me at this point. If you've met me, I'm a shy person by nature. It's both a blessing and a curse in many ways. There she is. Rebecca, do you want to finish or do you want me to go? How do you want to proceed, my dear?
I'm not sure where I got cut off. But the cheesy thing that I wanted to say to close was sort of the motto when I started as a student was ASCLS Voice, Value, Vision. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I was able to take into my career is that even as an entry-level professional, I had a voice and everything that I thought mattered. And so, I could contribute value, all of that. So that's it, my cheesy voice, value, vision closing. So thanks, Kyle.
We love it. We love Lynn Ingram quotes here. But that being said, no, and Bunny, she was kind and again, I was a shy person. Still am in a lot of ways. I just play an extrovert on TV is what I like to say. And so the fact that a person of her stature saw that in me really just inspired me. And the other major thing was I may be shy, but I also don't know when to shut my mouth either. Again, a blessing and a curse. And when I see something wrong, something that I don't agree with, something that I don't think is right, I rarely sit by passively and let it slide. But I was the first in my family first in my household to get a college degree, first in my extended family, really, especially in healthcare. And so I moved up to Boston from about an hour south in Massachusetts, and all the big city hospitals were there. And I really didn't know. I thought I was over my head. But being at ASCLS meetings early in my career, being surrounded by folks who had a similar passion for what we do, and said, you know what, early in my career, I opened my mouth, I inserted my foot, but it saved a patient, so I did it. And yeah, maybe I got spoken to, but I did it for the patient, and I did the right thing because it was for the patient. It inspired me to sometimes let my foot be inserted into my mouth, and did it on occasion get me in trouble? Not dramatically, but yeah. Was I able to help patient care because of it? Yeah, absolutely. And that was really where my career took off, was because of that ounce of bravery, or actually pounds of bravery this organization gave me, and really allowed me the chance to go to different floors in the major medical center I was working at and speak to physicians and nurses. And it was a teaching hospital, so there were egos in some cases, and but it was really this organization that empowered me. And I know I'm not alone in that. There's other folks that have just shared their story. I think that's the power of this org, whether you're a developing or ascending professional or 20 years into the game, there's a power being part of a community of like-minded people.
Thank you all for that. I know as a developing professional and for the other developing professionals watching or who will watch, it's very inspiring to hear from you guys who have been in the organization for so long and kind of see, where me or OG in a couple years, what we get to see and what we get to see change.
Let's not say so long, Katie. Let's not make it sound like
hey, I'll say longer. I'll say longer.
You can go lower.
Listen, you got knees. I know where they are. But I know you guys mentioned, the adding the APF, DPF, seats to different committees, having the APF, exist in the first place. all very significant changes that you guys were able to, bring forward. Along those lines, were there any other type of significant projects or initiatives that the APF DPF have started over the past couple of years, or, later in Kyle's case, that are still impactful today?
So I guess I'll start with where we kind of are now. We are doing the lab week run. We're easily raising $40,000 to $50,000 a year from that and giving that money back to the organization through scholarships, bringing new people in through those scholarships, therefore the students, therefore the other ascending professionals. And we do that for every major conference that ASCLS has now, including CLIC, starting last year. And also in my time on the forum, we developed the Cynthia L. Breen Memorial Award, which is now overseen by the Education Fund. But that award funds innovation in laboratory science for people who want to reach out to their communities and develop a project. So I think that's really exciting, and that's just what I've seen in the last few years.
I think one of the changes I was involved with, I would have been what's classified now as the ascending professional at the time, but in 2007, it existed as the Concern for the Forum of Minorities. And at that time, it was a separate group that met at the annual meeting. And you had to pay a membership into the forum separately. They had a lunch and they met, and it was a separate forum that they had. In 2007, the board had appointed a task force, and I was appointed to that task force along with Cheryl Caskey, Rosalind McQueen, and a few others. And we started looking at how to make that forum more inclusive. That task force ran for about 3 years, and in 2010, our recommendations to the board were accepted. It was voted on by the House, and that's what formed the current DAC that exists today. But we took a real deep look at how the forum ran and where the society was going, and looked really at the pillars of the voice, vision, and values that Rebecca mentioned, and how could we be more inclusive to the society. So we looked at the groundwork and how we could form the DAC, and impactful that that's still going today, and how that continues to grow and flourish in the events that are held each year.
Well, I know that back in the day, similar to, now, similar to many organizations, we're always mindful of membership. And where I was in a leadership role back in 2008, would have been 2008, I was asked to chair a task force called the Millennial Retention Task Force, because we were finding it. Katie, you got something to say? Thank you. Thank you. The gray is there, my friend. But the Millennial Retention Task Force, because we wanted to make sure ASCLS was positioned to not just recruit developing and ascending professionals as they're known now, but to make sure that there's also a desire for those folks to stay once they're here. They see the value of the organization. And one of the things that came out of it, and I'm going to pass the torch here in a second because Rebecca knows where I'm going with this, is that group started the Facebook page, and we had no social media footprint at the time. ASCLS had none. And I was sitting one day on my computer going, why don't we have a Facebook page? Because Facebook was still the site back then. MySpace had just puttered out, okay? No more top 8 friends. It got a little too, you could do top 24 friends, which seemed a little obscene. Like, I don't know if I have 24 friends, to be honest with you. 8 was hard enough.
Tom was there for you, Kyle.
What's that?
Tom was there for you.
Tom was there for me. You're right. Tom was, and you know what? Tom is still there because I found my old MySpace the other day. But the thing was, Facebook was started, but it was social media was still very much in its infancy. Twitter was only a year or two old. So a new task force was started, and a matriarch of ASCLS's social media took over, which I'm going to let Rebecca speak to that.
Sorry, it's so funny how we all sort of set each other up for, 2007, 2008. And so here's 2009. This was the very end of my year in my time in the Ascending Professional Group. And so I was going to say, I'm going to claim this as it sort of came from those two groups with the reporting out of Kyle's task force. And it may have even been in the middle of the year board report, because the social networking task force started in January. So I was called and asked to chair that. And I think we had 5 members, maybe, and all 5 were fellow newer professionals in the organization. And we were charged with basically investigating what ASCLS needed to do in social networking. But everyone knows that by the time you have told somebody what they need to do, that's not even the right thing anymore. So we sort of took the stance of ask forgiveness instead of permission. And we went into YouTube and Twitter, and it really became it took off. It became its own organic thing, which was very exciting. And our task force stayed together for several years, actually, and to the point that we developed the baby version of, I think, what the organization still might use for guidelines and best practices for social media as an institution. So that was, I can't even tell you how empowering that was. I was doing things and leading a small team of individuals way before there was, a degree in social networking and you could get paid the obscene things that people get paid. And we were all doing it as volunteers, and to the point that at the annual meeting, we were the social media team. We put together the plan for the week and all of the things that would happen. And there was, all of the vendor engagement and all of that. It had its perks, though. Usually the hotel, if we tweeted about being at the hotel, they would put some drinks or fruit in your room or whatever. But that was really an exciting thing to do that I would have never gotten a chance to do anywhere else. And I think it's only been since Julia joined the institution that Kyle and I are no longer on the Facebook page, because for the longest time we were some of those key operators. So thanks.
You're showing our age by calling it social networking, by the way.
I am. Well, that was the name of the task force, so that's why I did that.
Wow, that's so inspiring, like to hear how you guys were bold enough to implement these programs and projects. And I feel like that fire is still burning today, because like Jesse said, the projects that he has actually like spearheaded, I helped him. I was the vice chair. So I feel like it's just inspiring to see how now the ascending and developing professionals today still have that fire.
Well, can I just say too, look at what y'all are doing tonight. I mean, an Ask Me Anything was something we never dreamed of. It wasn't even a possibility. You are the mother of movie nights for the DAC, which is something we could have never dreamed of. And y'all are ascending and developing professionals. So yeah, you're right. That fire is still there. That power is still there. And I think that should be the take home for anyone that's here or listening to this. You're new, but it doesn't matter. Your voice has equal weight. Your voice makes an impact. Okay. So what? You don't understand what a committee charges or Robert's rules. You know what? I know people that have been in this org for 20 years and still don't understand Robert's rules. That's okay. And that's okay. Hey. So that's life. What matters is passion and voice. And so you all are doing that right now. So I just want to back up what you said.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on Kyle, we need your new ideas, your new voice, those things that we haven't thought of. We don't continue to grow and innovate without having new ideas constantly being put out there. So just cheers to everything going on, and don't be afraid to speak up with a new idea.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So with that being said, what roles do you see the ascending and developing professionals playing in the future of ASCLS?
I want to just chime in based on what Kyle and Josh just said. I don't think it's just a role. The ascending professionals and the developing professionals are the future of ASCLS. I mean, you are ASCLS. So you have to continue with the fire, like we've said, and know that it's important for you to bring everything that you have or you think or you want or all of it to the table, because it is the future. You are the organization and it's your organization, right? I mean, the things that we're doing now is for it to move into the future. I'm hopeful others have some specific things to say, but that really stood out to me is that I think at the beginning Kyle said it's hard to say that we're not in these groups anymore because we were for so long. And I can't believe that it's, I'm 15 years out of Ascending Professional, 22 years as a member. It doesn't feel like that. But one day you will be in that same position and it will be the same for you. Just keep at what you're doing now, keep your passion, keep involved, keep active, and you are ASCLS. I'm all about the cheesy tonight.
Exactly. As Rebecca says, you are ACLS, you're our future leaders. You're the future of this organization. The passion you bring now and the ideas you bring now shape how the organization changes over the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years. Yeah, I don't want to date myself, but I hit 25 years this coming membership year. So, but the biggest thing, as I've mentioned earlier, is, right now, if you're not too active, observe. Get involved. Feel free to speak up. Pull us aside at a meeting. I mean, sometimes we get so busy doing things or talking to people, but we're all down to earth. We're individuals. So just get involved, talk to us, share an idea, bounce something off us. We're here to help. I mean, all of us are lab professionals. And that's the nice thing about this being a grassroots organization. Everybody's approachable. Everybody contributes. Everybody has a voice. And this is your society. So the commitment and passion you bring will shape our future.
Darn it, Josh, you're not supposed to tell people I'm approachable. It like changes my mystique and all that stuff. So,
Except for Kyle. So,
yeah. So I'm semi-approach. No, I like when people approach me. I want to say beyond the organization, it's not just the organization isn't just your future. The entire profession is your future as well. And ASCLS plays, I'm going to say we punch way outside of our weight class with our impact on this profession. It is incredible the amount of change that this organization can drive in our profession. And so I would ask, I remember many, many moons ago, being told that as a student, it was my job to hold the seasoned folks accountable and to make sure that the future they're setting up for me and my colleagues is one they want to see. And I remember when the ascending professional timeframe was done for me, it almost kind of felt like, well, what do I do now? And now I'm sitting back going, oh, crud, I'm the one setting up the future and I want to be held accountable. Not just for ASCLS, but as stewards of this profession as well. ASCLS is not the only organization that impacts our profession, but like I said, we punch above our weight class. We really do make humongous impacts. So things that we're the organization that drove the DCLS home, okay? We weren't just the ones supporting it for high complexity lab directors. The DCLS exists because of ASCLS's work towards it, because it was the organization that had a vision and gave a central place for people to come together. That's the impact. So hold us accountable for other future states. Make sure your voice is being heard, either in a public way or in a private way. My email inbox and my Connect community is always open because we really can't do what we do unless we have a sense of what the future state should be. And that's where your voices are tremendously, tremendously important. The past informs us of what has been, but your voices inform us of where we need to go. And that's where I place a lot of my weight when I'm making decisions. What's the best thing I can do as a leader? And if I'm not hearing anything, it's hard for me to do that.
Yeah, so I would just say I feel like ascending professionals, developing professionals are really also pillars of the society, sort of like others have said here. And for me, it's been really cool to see the evolution of my peers, my colleagues in the forums. A lot of us were first years 4 years ago, and we were kind of shy and timid, and we weren't sure what our place was. And then all of a sudden, I was on a task force, and this person was writing for ASCLS today, and this person was chairing a committee. And now we're evolving into future leaders for the society. In 5, 10, 15 years, I think a lot of us will be the people in the officer roles running for president-elect, for secretary, director. So I just think that the forum really sets us up for success. It's been a place where we could grow and not just feel like we had to be a student and then be a professional. We could still be young and new and be learning very, very, uh, I don't know, in that community, in that network.
I think that's the thing. It's the community. Like every year when I go to a meeting, I'll see Rebecca or I'll see Josh, and it's like we might not have a ton of time to catch up, but there's that shared story that we all have, and there's that shared sense of like, look at how much we have grown the heck up. Like, look how cool this is. And that's inspiring. That really is super inspiring to be around.
He'll bring up a lot of, heartwarming stories of how y'all have, grown up in the society and advanced into different, positions leading, task forces, all those sorts of things. If you guys could reflect a little bit on how being in the society as students, as ascending professionals, has affected your professional life, not just within the society, but your actual, jobs, your careers, either going off as educators or maybe senior management positions, that sort of thing.
Okay, I guess I'll start on that one. So I touched a little bit on it earlier, but really it brought me out of my shell. ASCLS empowered me. It allowed me to get to know people. It allowed me to present on a national level at a poster, get out of my shell. The networking. I mentioned Bunny Rodak earlier. Also, when I was in my undergrad working on my MLS, met George Fritzma at a concert. And I did undergraduate research. George was running a company with Gordon Enns at the time called Colorado Coag. And so I ended up doing research on thromboxane B2 analyte in urine. And they donated all of the testing on those urine metabolites to my project and then published with me. But we basically looked at alternatives to aspirin and measured the urine metabolite to see what could inhibit platelet function. So we looked at ginkgo biloba, we looked at ginseng, we looked at dark chocolate. So you have to eat 4 ounces of dark chocolate a day, which is a lot to equal to baby aspirin, I'll tell you that. But a lot of that got me into the research mind and what can be done and just the networking there, and then having very distinguished professionals out there who've published 1 million papers mentor you and teach you how to publish and then help you get published. That really helped and meant a lot, and I would have never made those connections without ASCLS. And then, as I mentioned, when I got capped out in my career as a hospital supervisor, the connections I had made with other folks that were industry professionals say, oh, we have a job here. Have you ever thought about sales? Have you ever thought about marketing? And that has just continued to grow my career. And there's a lot of us now, even when I have a down day, a lot of the contacts I'll rely on at other companies to call and just have event session are ASCLS members. So the professional friendships and having those connections just to rely back on, they're true friendships that all came from ASCLS.
Dark chocolate challenge accepted. So I actually, I come from a family. My mother works in a meat department at a grocery store. My dad's a retired firefighter at this point. College professor wasn't really anything written in my imagination even. I didn't even dare to dream of something like that because it seemed like an impossible task. I always loved the idea of being a teacher. Wanted to be my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Sharon, someday because she was the coolest. But I remember coming to ASCLS meetings, receiving some feedback that I might make a good educator, getting opportunities. About 10 years ago, some things in my life had changed, and I really wanted the chance to explore another part of the country besides Massachusetts. And my connections in ASCLS were able to get me a job down in Orlando. And I lived right outside the House of Mouse in the town that Disney built, and had an incredible career down there. Got to start an MLT program from scratch. Then I got to work at the University of Central Florida and have amazing students like Katie, who make me feel old on a routine basis. So thanks, Katie. But about 2 years ago, I miss my family, being close to them. I miss New England. I miss the seasons, even though I'll miss people like OG, who I became really friendly with down in Florida. I missed that. And through ASCLS, just by happenstance, I discovered that the University of New Hampshire was looking for a role that was a perfect fit for me. And now I'm back up north, and in about 3 months, I'll be witching and moaning about the temperatures while OG and Katie get to make fun of me, and Josh does too, because it's nice in SoCal. But no, I'm very grateful. This organization has provided me a network that from early on as a student, I was finding career opportunities, which was just so damn cool.
So I would just say I got my current job because I met a vendor or rep from Vanderbilt University Medical Center at JAM in Grand Rapids, which, what was that, like 2-3 years ago? 2 years ago. So yeah, and I'm still there today. And I actually got into a really cool area of medicine, doing stem cell transplant and HLA. So I don't think I would have gotten that opportunity had it not been for ASCLS and the meeting steering committee.
I love it. I also, just like Jesse, got my job through FSCLS. I was relocating from Gainesville to Jacksonville, and someone a part of FSCLS basically connected me with a hospital. So it's great to hear the benefits and it's great to hear the benefits of being a part of these forums. So we're about to wrap up shortly.
Wait, did Rebecca have anything she wanted to say on that one? You're just skipping Rebecca.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
so
she's
sorry.
not skipping me. It's okay. I think really nothing super unique or separate to add, but echo. For me, I think something I didn't mention, and it wasn't really related to these forums, but ASCLS had a program called the Leadership Academy, and I got to participate in that in its first year. And that, in addition to the things that I have had experienced through the ascending and developing and ascending professional forums, I'm going to try to use the right terminology now. It opened some doors at the national level that I never would have thought I could have reached. We've all said it brought us out of our shell, ASCLS. I was invited as part of my Leadership Academy class to do a presentation at CLEC. So my first national presentation wasn't a poster or anything like that. We were doing one of the, and I can't remember the right word, but the sessions where everybody is in it. There aren't breakout sessions, but they're, the whole group of attendees for the conference. And that was nerve-wracking, but insanely rewarding. I know it was a group of us, and we had done a year's worth of work to do this presentation, but that presenting opened the door to other national presentations. The social networking task force work, we were invited to speak all over the country. I got to go to Hawaii for that and present about social networking and how to do that at a conference, or how to do that, where do you draw the line with smartphones in the lab? And something that Kyle hasn't mentioned, and he may not appreciate that I'm going to throw it out there, but we were even bloggers for a year and passed it back and forth every week. He would do a post and I would do a post the next week. And it was for Advance magazine. It was a sort of a companion to ASCLS, but not ASCLS entity. So those things all sort of led me to being, more empowered with my abilities as a presenter, or even in dabbling as an educator. I was asked through some ASCLS connections to take an adjunct role for a couple of years at our MedTech program here. So those things, and then down the road in your profession in the lab, leading committees in the laboratory and things like that, those opportunities really are some of the things I wouldn't have expected. And of course, all the people, the Kyles and the Joshes, and now the Jessies and Katies and OGs that I know, it's all about the relationships that we build.
Not the blog with Advance, Rebecca. That's a deep cut. That's what that is.
It's inspiring to see how far you guys have come and how these forums have impacted your career and your leadership within ASCLS. Like I said, this fire is just getting bigger after tonight. I'm very, very inspired. And I'm pretty sure other people watching this AMA are also inspired. So as we wrap up, and I know every one of you have touched on this, but I don't think it hurts to go over it again. What advice would you give current ascending and developing professionals, in addition to the ones you've given us already?
I'm going to say just jump in. I had no idea what I was doing. And now I love this organization. You guys hear that beeping? It's awful. I've been trying to get that changed for a week. But anyway, yeah, I just think you have to jump in. You might not always know what you're doing. My very first committee assignment was the scope of practice task force for a position paper. Task force lasted 2.5 years, and I met some of the most amazing professionals. Never would have met them otherwise, like J.R. Constance and Barbara Cry, and so many others. So just don't be afraid. Just go for it.
I echo that. Get involved, speak up. Every committee at ASCLS has interested observer roles. So even if you're not ready to jump fully in, express your interest to be involved. Let Kyle know. As president-elect, he can assign you as an interested observer to any committee. So if you're interested in government affairs, it doesn't hurt to sit in and call in and listen for a month or two. If you're interested in the E&R fund, just get involved and be involved. I remember meeting Katie a couple years ago. I was a poster judge for her. She was presenting a poster. Very first time I met her, judged her poster. Next thing I know, she's asking me to be involved in the Student Bowl competition. And now she's on the board of directors with me. So, you don't know where those relationships are going to go and how you're going to be involved with people. Just speak up, and we're here to help however we can.
I feel like I need to let Kyle close this one out. So I will say along the theme of say yes, speak up and say yes, but also know when to say no. That as a young professional with a lot of fire can be something that we don't do, and that can harm your future in your career and in your participation in ASCLS. You can take on too much, you can get burned out really quickly. So yes, say yes to those things, that are going to teach you all of these awesome things that we've taken away from our participation. But know when is the right time for you to say no, because we have all been there, and no one is going to hold it against you if you have to say no. So
please say no when it's not the right thing, because it's in your best interest. Now I feel like there's pressure in what I'm gonna say. But no, I was simply, whether it's ASCLS or your professional journey, your academics, if you're a developing professional, own your power. Like, that's one of the things that we need a paradigm shift on as a profession, and I think that needs to come from the ascending and developing professionals, because you all just have a spark of energy, the likes of which I have never seen before. And you need to recognize how much power you have, how much power we have as professionals. Think of how hard our programs of study are, okay? The amount of coursework that you're doing, the complexity of the coursework, the skills that you have developed. Do not sit back and say, oh yeah, I just run CBCs. Like, okay, yeah, sure. Seems like you're just running a CBC in your head, but to someone that's never done it before, who can spell CBC and that's about it, own your power, folks, okay? Bring it to the table and be proud of what you know, because honestly, that is what is going to advance this organization and, more importantly, our profession. The moment we all start recognizing that, because no one's going to give it to us. No other, stop looking to other healthcare providers to give us that power. You're going to see it in yourself, and you have it. And once we all see it in ourselves, that becomes the paradigm shifting moment where we are a tidal wave taking over the healthcare profession. I don't know if that is exactly what we want, but we will become an unstoppable force in our advocacy and in our knowledge. But it takes us seeing our own power, not allowing HR to pay us based on their power, based on what we believe. Well, HR is going to do what HR is going to do. But you hear what I'm saying. So that's my take home. Own your power.
Thank you for that. And thank all of you for all of your, input throughout today's AMA. I sound like a broken record in saying that it's very inspiring, because that's what, we've all been saying. But it really is, to see from, in a couple of years with, OG, who's been around for a little bit and is now our fabulous APF chair, to, Jesse, who's been here a little bit longer, now on board, to all of y'all who have been here, longer, and seeing how the forums have changed, what's maybe in store for us one day. It all is all very, very inspiring. So to bring this AMA to a close, again, thank you to all of our panelists. I know I had a fantastic time listening to y'all talk. I'm sure everybody else did as well. Thank you to OG for hosting tonight. And we'll go ahead and close out. So thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
good night.